Welcome. This video is about journaling as a personal practice. So in Manifesto, we have had a long discussion about our principle number one, which is know thyself. And the text that we have formulated is that individual commitment and accountability to regular, personal, communal, and embodied practice is essential. Deepening practice involves engagement with ancient wisdom and should be driven by desire to seek truth, love, and beauty. Big words. So in this video, I'm going to try and take that from all the way up there and bring it down to something very, very practical and down to earth. And that is going to be daily personal journaling. So I journal 5 times a week. Every morning, it's the first thing I do when I sit down on my desk. I have some other things that I do before that every morning. But when I sit down on my desk to do work, I do not start the day with email and social media and all that other stuff until after I've done my journaling. So I'm going to try and explain why and how that works. So we will start with Socrates' quote that the unexamined life is not worth living. We are living in a time of massive distraction compared to the time when Socrates lived. They had a really deep and reflective approach to life. Right now, we can sometimes think like, oh yeah, we're so much more advanced than our ancestors and we have all technology and science and we figured out so much stuff. There's an aspect where that's true. And then there's also an aspect whereby we are very, very confused, headless chickens or zombies, just staring at screens and running around and not really knowing and being aware of what it is we're doing. So that is the reasoning behind Manifesto's approach to know thyself. That's what we're trying to instigate here. And that is what we're trying to do with this first approach for you who is either just starting for the first time, trying to do some contemplative meditative practice, or if you've had several starts before and you haven't really found the right frame or the right approach for yourself, then this is really what we're recommending, is that you start journaling every single day. So we define practice as time that you're spent without distraction, with a specific intention to train your ability to focus your attention on the work of improving yourself. And this is the number one step that we're saying you should do. If you're on a core team, and you should be on a core team to take this further, then your team will also have specific guidelines and might have more to add on this. But this is kind of like the baseline of what we're offering as far as practices. It's inspirational. So, you can take this or leave it. I strongly recommend that you take it very seriously, especially if you don't have a very solid practice that you're very happy with already. If you have that already, then by all means continue with that, and you might want to supplement it with this as well. So what is journaling about? Well, I've been doing it for quite some time. I'd say since 2017, I've had a regular journaling practice. I have a book like this with me everywhere I go. A lot of the time, if I go to a meeting or something like that, I'll have this with me. And that's the stack of the last books over. Yeah, sorry, this way, whatever. That I've filled out since I started journaling. So some days I write 5 lines, some days I'll write a couple of pages. But the more time that I've used on these kinds of practices, the more that I have wanted to and found the benefit of and done more and more and more. And actually, especially with journaling, there was a time where I was just using more and more time. I was journaling every morning and evening for quite a long time. And then I kind of reached a saturation point. And now I've scaled back the journaling a little bit to just be doing it in the morning. But it is an essential part of what I'm doing. So the great thing I think about journaling is, first of all, that it is both spontaneous, in that you're kind of dealing with what it is that's inside of you. It's also a kind of meditative practice. It's kind of helping you to break things down and understand things as they're bubbling up in your consciousness somehow. And it's also something that you can use to be very structured and contemplative and be kind of dealing with some bigger themes and ideas in your life. So it's great for this kind of interaction. If you've seen the conversations that I've had with John Vervaeke and some of his work, then you'll see that there's this kind of twofold process that's necessary in any kind of contemplative, meditative ecology of practices, as he calls it, whereby you're kind of stepping back and going more into yourself and looking at the lens that you're looking through the world through. And then you're also reaching out into the world and trying to raise the level of abstraction and try and see the bigger picture and the way things are headed together. And the purpose, of course, of all of this is to bring about more embodiment and integration in yourself. That's what we're doing contemplative practice for. So journaling can be extremely productive and great if you use 1 or 2 minutes on it, 3 to 5 minutes on it. Sometimes there's some mornings where that's all I get to. And you can also very, very easily go much deeper and use 30 to 60 minutes in the morning. And it can be very much kind of like a natural desire and seeing the benefits of journaling that can drive these things. I think the benefits are that you get to work through your thoughts and ideas at a daily level and at a weekly level, also at a quarterly level if you do that. It helps you to maintain focus with yourself over a longer period of time so that you can be noticing how you kind of like change direction sometimes, how you swing, how your ideas about yourself and where you're going and where you want to can be kind of can be strengthened and solidified. You get to take your own life a bit more seriously when you do this. Most of us have quite a disconnect between our ideas about ourselves and ideas about reality, and then who we actually are and what reality actually is. And the main purpose of journaling, as I said, is to bring those things into alignment with each other, because over a longer period of time, you get to be reminded of yourself and you kind of get to work through things in writing. And it's so fascinating to go back and look. I don't do it that often, but when I do, it's amazing to read what I've been writing 1, 2, 3, 4 years ago, et cetera, et cetera. So that's great. It's a very masculine practice to journal as well. It can be, of course, very spontaneous and free, and you can, do this kind of like free journaling every single morning. The very first thing I do in my journaling practice is to say free journal, just to write down whatever's on your heart, whatever's on your mind, whatever comes out. And sometimes it's very short, sometimes it's very long. But some really great men of the past have journaled as well. So this includes Leonardo da Vinci, Thomas Edison, Albert Einstein, a woman like Marie Curie. She also journaled. So it's a very well-established practice by people who've had a lot of success with life. Very importantly, journaling is in a physical book. It's not on your computer screen. It's not on your phone. Get away from those. Call me old school, but it's really so much more beneficial to be writing things down. And there's a kind of solidity to the ideas and the thoughts that you're dealing with when you write it down on a piece of paper. I have a very bad handwriting, but I really enjoy the writing. When I got started, I actually went into a shop and spent quite a bit of time selecting the pen that I was going to use. And I did that I went to one of these shops that has like lots and lots of different types of pens. And then I actually just tried writing with all of them and felt like what felt the best to write with. And so it turned out to be like this, like rather fun. Yes, like interesting. I wouldn't have guessed it would be this one, but it felt really nice. And so for me, that kind of like tactile sensation of writing and enjoying the writing was really important, helped me to get going. So I think that's an important thing. When you do it, I really recommend if there are other people in your life, or if you have a partner or something like that. I've told my wife that whatever I write in here, this should be burnt when I die. So it's really just for me. No one else gets to read it. I occasionally read up from it. I sometimes even show people something I've written, but it's always me that selects that carefully, and I'm never writing in here for anybody else's benefit, and I never have that thought either that maybe someone would read it after I'm gone and whatever. So I can really open up my heart and fully express everything that I feel the need to express. That I sometimes, obviously I have my daily buddy calls and I share a lot of things with my buddy, but there are even things here that I need to kind of like work through by myself and before I share it with them, and that goes in here. So the way I do it on a very practical level, and I'm going to put links in the description of this video so you can see how to do that. But every single morning, I have a little flip out thing here. So this is kind of like you open the book and I have a little flip out thing every single morning. This is the questions that I answer for in the morning. And then once a week, I have my weekly review questions over here. Then I use the first couple of pages for tracking a specific thing. So this is my updating of my habits I put in there. This is my quarterly rocks or quarterly goals that I put in there. And then lately, I've been doing more tracking my physical training program on this page. I used to have that on a separate page, but now I put it in here as well. So I update that every morning. And then, I left the first couple of pages empty, but then all the rest of the daily journaling then comes in here. And I start every single day with writing the date. And then I just have a set amount of questions that I go through. And occasionally I'll skip a question or two. And what I've also done is I've changed my questions a lot over time. So these days they're much more solid. In the beginning, I was kind of updating them, even once a quarter or once a month. Sometimes I would change the questions, but these days they seem to have solidified. But I'm totally open to obviously I'm constantly looking for, am I getting the most out of each individual question, or is there something that can be changed, updated, or whatever? So I won't go through the individual questions on this video. But this was just to introduce the general topic. I'll link to the questions in the description of this document, and I'll probably make another video again with my reflections about each individual question that I ask. But basically, yeah, every morning I'll go through. I have 11 questions that I go through every single morning, and then once a week, and that's always on Monday morning, I'll just do my weekly review. And then I'd have a limited set of daily questions that I'll do when I do the weekly review to make it a bit more a little bit faster. But normally it'll take 5 to 10 minutes to answer all these questions. Sometimes, as I said, I can use up to an hour to write. And the weekly review will take just maybe about 15 minutes or something like that. So that what it does is it gives me a really clear idea of what I need to do this week. How did it go with what had happened last week? And also, of course, what I need to do today. How did it go with what I needed to do yesterday? And what are the things that I need to watch out for? What am I really excited about? What can I be grateful for is obviously a big thing. All of these questions I'll explain in the next video. So that was it. Hope you found it useful, and I'll look forward to diving more into the questions with you. And yeah, let me know if there's any questions.